Hello guys, Ryan from Husky Moving here, Arlington, Massachusetts. We are a full-service residential and commercial moving company serving the greater Boston area. We do a lot of handyman jobs. We do artwork mounting, TV mounting, odd jobs. We do disposal. If it involves a house, we try to get it done. Now, what I want to talk to you about is a job I did yesterday. We had a pack job yesterday. We were doing a girl hired me to go to her house. She was gonna rent a U-Haul. She wanted the U-Haul packed. It was a 15-foot U-Haul. She wanted it packed for a trip to New York. And so, as I always do, when I was booking the job, I sent her a bunch of messages indicating that there were basically going to be, besides the U-Haul, which she was picking up, there were going to be two things that she was going to be responsible for, which were providing straps for us to tie stuff down in the truck, and also providing pads to protect items to go to New York City. And so I want to detail what happened with that, not as a way to shit on her, but as a way to explain that you always have to protect yourself and you have to take responsibility for making yourself successful and not assume other people are going to do that. That's one of the biggest takeaways I would try to teach a young person if I had the ability. In life, and specifically in the moving business, is assume that people are going to fail you and you have to make yourself successful. Now, I'm going to preface this by saying I'm aware that that sounds terrible. It sounds horrible. It sounds horrible to say that you have to assume the worst of human nature, but as much as it pains me to say this, I've been doing this a long time, and unfortunately, more often than not, when people say they're going to do something, they do not follow through, at least as it pertains to the moving business. So that's what we're talking about today. And before you guys look at me and go, oh my God, he's old and jaded and what a miserable dick and blah, 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 keep in mind, I'm working on roughly 25 years of experience. So I'm pretty qualified to speak on what people are most likely going to do and most likely not going to do. I got a lot of experience. A lot of experience with people telling me, oh, I'm going to do this, 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 and this. And then you get there and they're like, I didn't do it. It's rare when people actually do what they say they're going to do. So take this with a grain of salt. But understand, I'm not lying. This is all facts. So anyway, let's go through the situation. I'm going to explain to you what I did. I'm going to explain to you what actually transpired. And then I'm going to bring it full circle and get back to my original point, which is you got to do what you need to do to make yourself successful, with the assumption that people are most likely not going to do what they say they're going to do. And it's your responsibility to make yourself successful. So here's where we're at. I wrote out my little list of the actual messages that were transposed, sent back and forth between the two of us. I write, two things to keep in mind. Typically, when I move people, we wrap all furniture and fragile items. So if you want your items protected during transport, you would need to provide furniture blankets, pads, comforters, towels, etc., etc., etc. Also, you need a way to tie things down in the truck, rope, tie downs, ratchets, etc., etc., etc. If you need any supplies, and then I give her our website, which is huskymoving.com/store. I'm giving her everything she needs to do. You can either get it yourself, you can get it through us, and I can just bring it. And then I go a little bit further. I say, or you can order from Amazon or Home Depot. Alternatively, you can just use rope from a hardware store and towels or old blankets, assuming you want stuff padded. But just be aware, fragile items aren't going to survive a trip to New York without padding of some sort. And obviously, anyone that packing the truck is only as good as the equipment we are provided to do the job. I'm only as good as my tools. And so if you provide me with shit tools, I can't do a job properly. And here's the thing. When I'm packing a truck for you to go to New York, I can't give you my moving blankets because I'm not going to get them back. I can't give you my tie downs because I'm not going to get them back. That's why in our moving truck, we have hundreds of really thick moving blankets and probably 30 tie downs in the truck. Because that's an important part of a moving business. If you look in the back of any moving truck on the planet, anyone worth their salt, they're going to have giant stacks of moving pads and they're going to have a ton of tie downs. And then they're going to have other equipment other than that. But the first two things you need when you do a moving job, moving blankets, tie downs. What do you need on your job? Moving blankets, tie downs. She says, thank you. Yes, I do have some pads and blankets. I will also get rope. Thank you. That's one series of messages. And then, before I show up to do the job the day before, as I often do, I'll send her a message. I said, if you need any last-minute supplies, mattress covers, etc., 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 let me know if you need anything, and I'll bring them with me and add to the bill. And then I give her the website once again. So again, I'm giving her another option if she needs it. Doesn't say anything about it. So that's the preface to the entire story. That's where we're starting from. So in my mind, I've tried to walk her through the process multiple times. Made it pretty easy for her as far as I'm concerned. She could either A, go provide the stuff on her own. She could order it through Amazon. She could order it from Home Depot. And keep in mind, that original message was sent like a week out, so she had plenty of time to do it. Or, alternatively, I could bring it with me if she wanted me to bring it and she didn't want to buy it. Those are pretty much your two options. So I get to the house, start chit-chatting, blah, blah, blah. She's showing me what needs to go, whatever, whatever. Stop bringing boxes down to the truck, blah, blah, blah. And then when it comes time to wrap the first piece of furniture, I said, hey, I know you said you were going to have a whole bunch of blankets or moving pads. Can you show me what you got? And she's looking at me like I'm crazy. She's like, I don't really have anything. And I was like, wait, hold on. Wait, what? What do you mean you don't have anything? She's like, yeah, I mean, I got like, I think she said she had like 2 comforters or something. And I was like, wait, what? We're moving a 15-foot truck worth of stuff. What do you mean you have 2 comforters? You said you were going to take care of this. And she goes, yeah, I don't really have anything. She's like, U-Haul was supposed to provide it, but I got there this morning and they didn't have any blankets. So I don't have anything. And I was just like, okay. And so, again, not because I wanted to, but I had to have this conversation. Now I go from being like, you know, I'm in a good mood, I'm happy to be there. Now I'm just kind of irritated, if I'm being honest with you. Because at the end of the day, anything I touch, I'm responsible for. I'm putting my liability on it. So now I'm not getting the proper tools to do the job correctly. And so now I'm irritated because this is putting my liability at risk. It's putting my reputation at risk. I'm ultimately responsible for what goes in that truck and the way it gets to New York and blah, blah, blah. So I said to her, I said, listen, I need to say this to you. I know you don't want to have this conversation, but I need to have it. I am not responsible for anything that gets damaged on the ride from here to New York City. It's not happening. And she goes, well, what do you mean? I go, listen, we talked about this. I told you you needed to provide moving blankets or I could bring them and you chose to do neither. And so I cannot be responsible for any liability for anything that goes in that truck or anything that gets damaged. I told you you needed these blankets and I told you why you needed them. It is impossible for me to ship pieces of glass, for example, from the city we were in, which is right outside of Boston, to New York City, and have you expect them not to get broken if they're bouncing around in a moving truck going on a 4.5-hour trip, if not more, to New York City. It is literally not going to happen, and I'm not taking responsibility for it. And so now she starts blaming U-Haul, and she's getting irritated with me, which I understand on some level. I mean, I get it. And I said, I just stopped her mid-sentence. I was like, listen, I'm not trying to assign blame here. The reality is, whether you like it or not, I told you to get the blankets, and you didn't follow through and get the blankets. And so now, where we're at is I'm not taking responsibility for anything that goes in that truck in terms of damage it. And you need to acknowledge the fact that you failed in your role. We all have a bunch of roles here, and you failed in your role. And so now I'm not willing to take the consequences of you failing in your role. I didn't say it quite so harshly, but I let her know that it was on her, not on me. And now, if I sound like a dick when I'm saying this, if you're not in the business or you don't have to pay liability insurance or you're not cutting checks for insurance, you're probably going, oh, well, this guy's being really harsh. He's being a dick. If you're on the other end of it and you're the one paying out if something gets damaged, or you're the one who has to hear people angry if something gets damaged, then you can completely understand where I'm coming from, where I'm like, I'm not taking responsibility for this. This is not my thing. So she's like, she starts off being a little bit upset. And if I'm being completely transparent with you, I'm in the mode where, like, I don't really give a F because I told you what to do, you didn't do it, and so now here we are, and you have to have this awkward conversation. But by my way of thinking, I didn't put us in this position. You put us in this position. It's not on me. So if you're angry at me, it might be time to turn the mirror around, and that's the way I'm looking at it. So I basically just go away for a little while, let her stew for a second, and I gotta go. If I'm being honest, I just need to get out of there because I'm just, like, disappointed that the person didn't follow through what they said they were going to fall through. So she's like furiously going around the house, or frantically going around the house trying to find stuff like blankets and towels and stuff. And she's like, well, what do we need to wrap? And I'm like, listen, basically anything you care about, we need to wrap. Let's put it that way. Anything that's got a wood finish on it, anything that's glass, anything that's artwork, anything that's got like any kind of finish on it that you care about, that you don't want rubbing up against the side of the truck for the entire trip, we need to wrap. She had a TV. What else did she have that was awkward? Anything else? Bunch of like pictures, artwork. There were 2 big glass tables which had circular pieces of glass on them. So she calls her cousin. She's going to get her cousin to come over with some blankets, blah, blah, blah. I offered to drive back to my house and get moving blankets, which I actually have at my house. I gladly would have brought them with me, because that would have made my job a lot easier. And if I'm being completely honest with you, it would have made her bill a lot less, because we spent a lot of time dicking around trying to figure out how we were going to wrap these items with the very little padding that we were provided. And it took up a lot of time, both in conversation and in actual action. It would have been a lot more efficient to just bring the blankets and use moving blankets. She didn't want me to do that. The cousin never showed up while we were there. The cousin wasn't able to get there by the time we were ready to leave. Supposedly she was going to bring some blankets over. And then the other thing is that at some point I said, hey, I know we talked about getting tie downs. Can you show me what you got? And she's like, yeah, I didn't get anything. And I'm like, okay. She's like, what do we need tie downs for? And I'm like, I brought her in the truck. I'm like, listen, all this stuff that's in the truck, when you're driving up a hill, when you're driving down the highway and forces want to pull it backwards, when gravity's working against it, it's all going to want to fall over. We have glass that we need to tie down to a wall so it's protected. You need to tie stuff down in the truck. Like, I talked to you about this. And she's like, yeah, I don't have anything. She's like, will electrical cord work? And I was like, no, it won't. It won't at all. Now, to be fair, if I'm being completely fair, I brought rope with me and I brought tie downs because I thought this was going to be an issue. I just had a feeling it was going to be an issue. I didn't bring pads, which I'm being completely honest with you, it's like literally the point of the video. If I was going to bring tie downs and rope, I should have brought pads too. So if I'm being completely fair, this is all on me because I should have known better. Is really the takeaway and where I'm going with this giant story. The takeaway is I should have known better. Why did I not bring the pads? I know that based on probability of the last 1,500 jobs I've shown up to, it's more likely than not that if someone told me they were going to provide pads and straps to me, they're not going to provide pads and straps to me. So the larger question would be, why did I not bring the pads? Why did I just bring the straps and not the pads? That's the real takeaway from this video. I should have assumed I was going to need both pads and straps. I didn't do so. And by not doing so, I caused the job to be more difficult than it needed to be because I was being lazy in the short term. My not wanting to walk down into my basement and get 20 pads and bring them to my car wound up causing me to have a lot more work on the back end and have to deal with a customer who at the time was like not happy because I was calling her out on the fact that she hadn't done what she said she was going to do. I could have avoided all that in retrospect very easily. The customer would have saved money. I would have made more money by selling the pads because I obviously marked them up like 100%. And so that's a failure on my part. So that's what I want you guys to take away from this story is not, I don't want you to focus on the customer, although I understand that 95% of the video was on what the customer and what the customer didn't do. The reality is that it's more likely than not that the customer is not going to do what they say they're going to do, and you're responsible for your own success. Meaning, I should have brought the pads, I should have brought the straps, I should have assumed I was going to need them, and me not doing so ultimately was a failure on my part, not a failure on the customer's part per se, because I should have known better. Anyway, guys, I know this is a relatively negative story, but the takeaway from it is I want you to make yourself successful and not assume that someone else is going to make you successful. It's your responsibility to do what you know you need to do or guess what you need to do to give yourself the best chance of success. All right, in life and in the moving business. If you found any value in this video, please like and subscribe as always. If you need to get a hold of me, info@huskymoving.com is the email address, and huskymoving.com is our website. Thank you so much for listening, guys. I appreciate it as always.